Welcome back to our study of Proverbs chapter 1. In the previous verses, we saw the foundation of wisdom and the initial invitation not to condone sinners. Now, Solomon will show us exactly how this seduction works and the devastating consequences of giving in to it. Prepare yourself for one of the most powerful warnings in the entire Bible. Verse 11. If they say, "Come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood, let us hide ourselves from the innocent without cause." Here begins one of the most disturbing and realistic passages in Proverbs. Solomon isn't being abstract or theoretical. He's putting specific words into the mouths of sinners, showing us exactly how seduction works, how the invitation to evil is presented. If they say, Solomon is giving us a script, a blueprint of what to listen for. He's making us literate in the tactics of evil. This is practical wisdom, recognizing the patterns, identifying the warning signs before it's too late. Come with us. Note the inclusion, the invitation to communion. Evil rarely works alone. There's something in fallen human nature that seeks complicity, that wants to drag others into the same pit. Companionship in destruction offers a false sense of validation. This phrase also reveals a deep psychological truth. No one wants to sin alone. Sin seeks community. That's why gangs form, why corrupt groups establish themselves, why networks of destructive behavior multiply. There's a false sense of security in numbers. Let us lie in wait to shed blood. Here the proposal becomes explicitly violent. The word lie in wait suggests premeditation, planning, deliberate intent. It's not an impulsive act of anger, but a cold, calculated conspiracy. Shed blood is an expression that means taking life, causing fatal harm. In Solomon's original context, this could literally mean ambush and murder. But the principle applies to any form of intentional destruction of another person's life or well-being. Let us hide from the innocent. Here lies the moral cowardice inherent in evil. They don't confront the strong or the armed. They hide to attack the vulnerable, the unprotected, those who cannot adequately defend themselves. The word innocent here means someone who has done nothing to deserve such an attack. There is no justice here, no legitimate retribution. It is pure malice directed at the guiltless, without reason. These two words are crucial. They are not seeking justice, legitimate revenge, or self-defense. They are attacking gratuitously, without just cause. This reveals the nature of pure evil. It is irrational, gratuitous, and destructive for pleasure or selfish gain. This verse teaches us something important about how evil works. It doesn't announce itself by saying, "Come and do something obviously evil." It invites fellowship, adventure, and action. Evil disguises itself as camaraderie, courage, even vigilante justice. In our modern context, this verse applies in multiple ways. It can be an invitation to participate in bullying. Come, let's get that strange kid. It can be an invitation to defraud. Come, no one will find out. It can be an invitation to destroy someone's reputation. Come, let's spread this about them. The principle remains. Whenever there is an invitation to intentionally harm an innocent person without just cause, we are listening to the voice of the sinners Solomon warned us not to indulge. This verse also prepares us psychologically. When we hear these words in real life, even in more subtle forms, we should hear alarm bells ringing in our minds. It's time to remember. This is exactly what Proverbs warned me would happen. I will not consent. Finally, there is a reminder here that evil is not just an abstract force. It works through real people, extending real invitations. And our response to these invitations determines our character and our destiny. Verse 12. Let us swallow them alive, as Sheol and whole, as those who go down to the pit. The sinner's proposal continues, and now it becomes even darker. This verse uses powerful imagery of death and the underworld to describe the intensity and completeness of the destruction they plan. Let us swallow them alive. The Hebrew word here carries the idea of swallowing, devouring completely. It's the same word used when the earth opened up and swallowed Korah and his followers in the book of Numbers. There's something voracious here, of total and sudden consumption. The word alive intensifies the horror. It's not simply killing, it's destroying while there's still life, consciousness, and the ability to feel. It's a cruelty that neither waits for nor allows for a natural or peaceful death. Like Sheol. Sheol was the Hebrew term for the underworld, the place of shadows where all the dead go. The comparison here is with the inevitability and completeness of death. Just as Sheol swallows everyone eventually, without exception and without return, these evildoers want to swallow their victims. There's also a frightening arrogance here. They're assuming powers that belong only to death and God. They're playing gods, deciding who lives and who dies, who prospers and who is destroyed. And whole as those who go down to the pit. Whole means complete, without remainder, totally. It's not partial destruction or limited damage. It's complete annihilation. The pit is another reference to the grave, the tomb, the ultimate end. This verse reveals something crucial about the mindset of those who choose the path of evil. They have no limits, no moral restraints, no compassion to stop them. Once they cross the line into intentionally harming the innocent, there's no depth to which they can't sink. Psychologically, this verse describes what happens when conscience is silenced and evil is rationalized. People begin to casually talk about total destruction as if it were an exciting adventure. Language becomes desensitized. The reality of the pain they will cause is abstracted. In our day and age, this mentality manifests itself in many forms. It could be cyberbullying that doesn't stop until the victim attempts suicide. It could be revenge that isn't satisfied until it completely destroys someone's life. It could be systematic corruption that drains resources intended for the most vulnerable. There's also an important spiritual principle here. Sin always wants to go further than we initially planned. What begins as just a little thing quickly escalates. What begins as a small harm quickly becomes a complete destruction. This verse also shows us why Solomon so emphatically warned us to not consent in verse 10. Because once you take the first step, once you enter that path, the internal logic of evil takes you deeper and deeper. What you thought would be limited and controlled quickly becomes unlimited and uncontrolled. For those listening to this study, this verse is a warning. Watch the trajectory. When someone invites you to just do a small wrong, ask yourself, where will this end? If I take this first step, where will I be in 10 steps? In 100 steps? Finally, there is a grim reminder here. Evil is not just morally wrong, it is inherently destructive. People who choose this path don't just violate abstract principles, they cause real harm, real suffering, real destruction of real lives. Verse 13, we will find all kinds of precious goods. We will fill our houses with plunder. Now we come to the real motive, the true motivation behind the proposed violence. It's not just wanton malice, it's greed. This verse reveals what truly moves the hearts of the wicked, the desire for wealth obtained through injustice. We will find all kinds of precious things. The word "we will find" has a tone of certainty, of confidence. They're not saying, perhaps we will find. They're counting their earnings before committing the crime. They're already mentally spending the stolen money. All kinds indicates diversity and abundance. It's not just one type of wealth. It's multiple forms of valuable goods. There's a fantasy here, an inflated vision of what they'll get. Greed always exaggerates potential rewards. Precious things refers to items of high value: gold, silver, jewelry, expensive goods. The Hebrew word suggests rare, desirable things that confer status and power. They're not just talking about survival, they're talking about luxury, about impressive wealth. We will fill our houses with spoil. Spoil is a technical word for goods taken in war or robbery. Here is the language of conquest, plunder, and violent appropriation. This isn't honest trade or fair labor, it's pillage. Our houses makes everything personal and tangible. They are imagining their own homes filled with stolen treasures. They can visualize exactly where they will put each item, how their lives will be transformed by this ill-gotten wealth. This verse teaches us something fundamental about the nature of temptation. It always promises quick and easy material gain. Evil rarely tempts us with suffering or loss. It paints attractive pictures of prosperity, success, abundance, only obtained the wrong way. There is also a dangerous illusion here, the idea that wealth obtained unjustly can bring true happiness, that you can fill your house with spoils and somehow it will satisfy your heart. But Proverbs, in later chapters, will make it clear that better is a little with righteousness than great gains without right. In our modern context, this verse perfectly describes the mentality behind so many schemes, frauds, and corruption. People who embezzle public funds are thinking exactly this. Let's fill our houses. People who participate in pyramid schemes are being seduced by this same promise. The verse also reveals how materialism fuels injustice. When material possessions become our definition of success, when filling our houses becomes our ultimate goal, then any means becomes justifiable. Greed blinds our moral conscience. There is an implicit contrast here with the promise of verse 9, where wisdom offered graceful diadems and necklaces, ornaments of honor and character. Here, foolishness promises houses full of spoils, wealth without honor, abundance without integrity. This verse also warns us to question the source of any financial opportunity presented to us. If the promise is quick, easy wealth disproportionate to the effort or value created, there is probably something wrong. Legitimate wealth usually comes through honest work, time, and the creation of real value. For young people especially, this verse is crucial. We live in a culture that constantly promises get rich quick, that glorifies wealth regardless of how it was obtained, that measures success solely by material accumulation. Proverbs calls us back to reality. Wealth obtained unjustly is not only morally wrong, it destroys the soul. Finally, this verse prepares us for what comes next, the exposure of delusion. Solomon will show that these promises are empty, that this path leads not to prosperity but to ruin. Verse 14, cast your lot among us, we will all have one purse. This verse completes the sinner's speech with a seemingly generous and egalitarian offer. After presenting the crime and the reward, they now extend the final invitation. Join us as an equal partner. Cast your lot among us. Casting your lot was an ancient method of making decisions or dividing property, similar to throwing dice. The phrase here means, become one of us. Enter fully into this partnership. Commit your fate to ours. There is something irrevocable about this language. It's not try and see, it's cast your lot, make a full commitment. Once you're in, you're in. Once you've participated in the crime, you are fully complicit. This is a classic recruitment tactic for evil, making you feel included, part of something, accepted into a group. We all have a fundamental human need to belong, and the wicked exploit this desire, offering community at the cost of integrity. We will all have one purse. Here is the promise of complete economic equality. There will be no hierarchy in the division of spoils. Everyone will share equally. The newcomer will receive as much as the veterans. It is a seemingly fair and attractive offer. The single purse suggests mutual trust, total transparency, complete communion of goods. There is no mine and yours, it is ours. In theory, this sounds like true brotherhood, an ideal community, perfect solidarity. But there is a bitter irony here. They are offering equality within the group while planning to rob and kill people outside the group. They are promising communion based on shared crime. They are building community on the foundation of injustice. This verse teaches us something important about false communities. Evil often disguises itself as brotherhood. Gangs offer family. Corrupt groups offer loyalty. Criminal organizations offer brotherhood. But it is a communion built on the destruction of others. There is also an implicit promise of protection here. If we are all in this together, no one can bring us down individually. The common purse isn't just about sharing gains, it's about sharing risks and creating a mutual complicity that ensures silence. In our day and age, this pattern repeats itself constantly. It might be the group of co-workers who invite you to participate in a deviant scheme. We all do. We all share. It might be the social circle that practices destructive behavior and offers acceptance in exchange for participation. The seduction here is particularly powerful for people who feel lonely, excluded, or searching for belonging. The offer of one purse, of total inclusion and equality, may seem irresistible to those who have never truly felt like they belong. But Proverbs wants us to see through the illusion. This community isn't true communion, it's conspiracy. This equality isn't true justice, it's shared complicity. This common purse isn't true generosity, it's the division of stolen spoils. The contrast with the true community of faith is striking. The church also offers one purse, in a sense, sharing resources, mutual care, belonging, but it is based on love, justice, and mutual sacrifice, not shared crime. This verse also warns us. Beware of offers that seem too generous, too inclusive, too egalitarian, especially when they come with the expectation that you participate in something morally questionable. True community never demands that you compromise your integrity as the price of admission. Finally, there's a simple test here. If community requires absolute secrecy, if fellowship depends on never questioning or disagreeing, if the common purse is funded by injustice, then no matter how attractive it may seem, it is not where you belong. Verse 15, "My son, do not go with them. Keep your foot from their paths." After 4 verses presenting the seductive discourse of the wicked, Solomon now interrupts with his answer. And his answer is clear, direct, and urgent. There is no negotiation, no middle ground, no, it depends on the circumstances. The answer is an absolute no. My son, again the paternal address, intimate, full of care. It is not a cold authoritarian decree. It is a father holding his son's face, looking into his eyes, imploring, "Listen to me, this is life or death." This address also reminds us that the warning comes from someone who loves us, who wants our good, who has our best interests in mind. It is not a stranger trying to control us. It is a father trying to protect us. Do not go on the journey with them. The first instruction is negative. Do not go. Do not take the first step. Do not begin the journey. The word way here is significant. It is not just an isolated action, it is a path, a direction, a lifestyle. There's profound wisdom here. Solomon isn't saying go with them but don't participate in their crime, or go with them but keep your values. He's saying don't even start, don't go down that path at all. Why? Because paths have momentum. Once you start walking in a direction, it becomes increasingly difficult to stop or turn back. Once you're on their path, even if your intentions are to resist evil, the pressure, circumstances, and internal logic of that lifestyle will pull you deeper. Turn your foot from their path. The second instruction is even more emphatic. It's not just don't go, it's actively turn away, change direction, take the opposite path, deliberately create distance. The word foot is interesting. Your foot is what moves you, what takes you from one place to another. Controlling your feet means controlling your life's direction. It means making conscious decisions about where you go, who you go with, what places you frequent. Your paths. Note the plural. It's not just one path. There are multiple paths, all leading to the same destructive destination. There may be different routes, different methods, different manifestations of evil, but they are all dangerous and must be avoided. This verse teaches us the principle of preventive separation. It's not enough to have good intentions. It's not enough to think, I'm strong, I can resist. Wisdom says, don't put yourself in that situation in the first place. For our times, this means concrete choices. Which parties you go to or don't go to. Which social groups you join or avoid. Which work environments you accept or reject. Which relationships you cultivate or sever. There is also a principle of vigilance here. Keep your foot away is active, not passive. It requires constant attention, deliberate decisions, and the courage to be different. We can't simply float passively through life hoping to avoid evil. We must actively turn away from it. This verse also validates the importance of healthy boundaries. Saying no to dangerous people, places, and situations isn't a lack of love or arrogance. It's wisdom. It's not unfair judgment. It's wise self-preservation. For young people, this verse is particularly crucial. The pressure to just try or not be so strict or not judge is immense. But Solomon says clearly, there are places you simply shouldn't go, people you shouldn't walk with. There is also an implication here for parents and mentors. Part of our responsibility is to help young people identify these dangerous paths and teach them to steer clear of them before it's too late. Finally, this verse reminds us that avoiding evil is as important as doing good. Holiness isn't just about doing the right things. It's also about not doing the wrong things, not going to the wrong places, not walking on the wrong roads. Verse 16, for their feet run to evil and they make haste to shed blood. Now Solomon explains the reason for his urgent warning. He gives us an analysis of the character and behavior of the wicked, showing us why we must turn away from them. And the picture he paints is one of speed and urgency toward evil. Because this word connects the verse to the previous instruction. It is not arbitrary to turn away from them. There is a solid, rational reason. Solomon is appealing to our reasoning ability, not just demanding blind obedience. Their feet run to evil. What a powerful image. It's not that they walk slowly or reluctantly toward evil. They run. There is speed, there is enthusiasm, there is urgency in their pursuit of wrong. The word run suggests not just movement, but accelerated, hurried movement, difficult to stop, like a speeding car that can't brake quickly. Once the wicked are moving toward evil, the momentum is tremendous. To evil, the destination is clear. There is no ambiguity. They are not rushing towards something morally neutral that could ultimately be good or bad. The target is explicitly evil, that which harms, destroys, violates God's order. This verse describes a spiritual condition where evil is not just occasional or reluctant, but something that has become the natural and enthusiastic direction of life. It is a description of active depravity, not just moral weakness. And they rush to shed blood. The second part of the verse intensifies the first. They don't just rush to evil in general, but specifically, they rush to lethal violence. Shed blood is biblical language for taking life, causing death. They rush adds another layer of urgency. There is no hesitation, no second thoughts, no pause for moral reflection. There is a rush, an impatience, an eagerness to execute their evil plans. This verse teaches us something crucial about the nature of evil. It is not static. Once someone chooses the wrong path, there is an acceleration, a progression. What begins as small steps quickly becomes a runaway race. There's also a frightening implication here. If you're walking with people whose feet run to evil, You'll be swept along by their momentum. Even if you want to slow down, even if you want to stop, the group's speed will carry you along. For our modern context, this verse perfectly describes how destructive groups work. Think of how a mob can quickly escalate into violence. Think of how group dynamics can accelerate behaviors that no individual would engage in alone. This verse also explains why the instruction in verse 15 was to turn aside your foot, because their feet are already running. If you don't actively turn aside, you'll be caught in the current. Neutrality is not an option when you're around people running to evil. There's also an implicit contrast here with those who run to righteousness, who are zealous for holiness, whose feet are quick to do good. We're all running in some direction. The question is, where are our feet taking us? This verse invites us to self-examination. Where are my own feet running? When I have free time, extra energy, available resources, what direction do I naturally take? What excites me, accelerates me, makes me run? For parents and mentors, this verse is a warning. Watch where the feet of the young people in your care are running. Don't wait until they're at full speed to intervene. Help direct their feet onto the right paths while there's still time. Finally, this verse is a somber reminder that there are people in this world whose character is so corrupted that evil has become their second nature. They are not neutral, awaiting influence. They are actively destructive. And wisdom says, keep your distance. Verse 17. It is no use spreading a net in the sight of any bird. This is one of the most enigmatic verses in Proverbs chapter 1, and its interpretation has been debated by scholars for centuries. But its central message is clear. There is a profound lesson here about traps, perception, and the inevitability of justice. It profits nothing to spread the net. The image is of a bird catcher setting his trap. Spreading the net was a common hunting method. You would place a net on the ground, scatter seeds or bait, and when the birds came to feed, you would pull the strings and they would be trapped. In the sight of any bird, here lies the crucial point. If you spread the net while the birds are watching, they won't be foolish enough to enter it. They see the trap being set and simply fly away. No bird with even a modicum of survival instinct would enter a trap it saw being set. But what exactly is the application of this proverb in this context? There are two main interpretations, both valid and profound. The first, Solomon is saying that the wicked are more foolish than birds. He has just exposed their entire plot in the previous verses, showed their tactics, revealed their motivations, explained their traps. Anyone with the slightest wisdom, even a bird, should see through the deception and avoid the trap. In other words, I've just shown you exactly how they operate. Now that you see the net being spread, it would be extreme folly, worse than the folly of a bird, to enter it anyway. It is an appeal to reason. If even birds avoid obvious traps, how much more should an intelligent human being avoid clearly exposed traps? The second interpretation, equally powerful, is this. The wicked themselves are more foolish than birds. They are spreading a net, planning violence and robbery, but they do it in plain sight. That is, in a way that God sees, that justice sees, that the consequences see. And yet, they proceed anyway, unaware that they are preparing their own destruction. In this reading, Solomon is saying the wicked think they are setting a trap for others, but in reality, they are setting it for themselves. They don't realize that their own net will catch them. They are more foolish than birds because they don't see the obvious danger of their own actions. Both interpretations converge on a central truth. Foolishness ignores obvious warnings and clear consequences. The fool sees the trap and walks into it anyway. The fool sets traps without realizing they are setting themselves up. This verse teaches us that wisdom includes the ability to see danger before it reaches us. It's like an early warning system. The wise see the net being spread. They recognize patterns, identify dangers, perceive malicious intent, and act accordingly. For our times, this verse is incredibly relevant in the information age. Scammers, manipulators, and predators often operate by spreading nets in plain sight. Their tactics are known, their patterns are documented, their methods are exposed online. And yet, people continue to fall into the same traps. Why? Because they don't heed the warnings. Because they think it will be different with me. Because greed or desire blinds their ability to see the obvious. They are less wise than the birds. This verse also has a dimension of divine justice. The wicked may think they are being clever, that no one sees, that they will get away with it, but they are spreading the net in the sight of God. And divine justice, even if delayed, is inevitable. They are preparing their own capture. There is also a principle of harvest here. You reap what you sow. If you set traps for others, you will eventually reap traps for yourself. If you spread nets of deceit, you will be the one caught in them. Finally, this verse is a call to vigilance. Be like the bird that sees the net being spread and flies away. Develop your spiritual instincts. Learn to recognize danger. Don't be more foolish than a bird. Use your God-given intelligence to avoid obvious traps. Verse 18. But these lie in wait for their own blood, and lie in wait for their own lives. This verse is a devastating revelation of the true nature of the path of evil. Solomon now exposes the tragic irony and inevitable fate of the wicked. What they plan for others, they are actually preparing for themselves. But these, the word "but," creates a stark contrast. Despite all their confidence, despite all their plans, despite their promises of wealth and success, the reality is exactly the opposite of what they imagine. They lie in wait for their own blood. What a shocking revelation. Remember verse 11, where they said, "Let us lie in wait for blood." They thought they were laying ambushes for others, but Solomon reveals, in fact, they are laying ambushes for themselves. The phrase "their own blood" can mean two things. First, literally their own lives, blood being synonymous with life. Second, it can refer to their own relatives, their own family, their own people. In both cases, the point is the same. The destruction they plan will eventually catch up with them. This is a fundamental spiritual law. Evil is self-destructive. It's not just that God eventually punishes evil, although that is true. It's that evil itself contains the seeds of its destruction. It's like a poison that no matter who you give it to, will eventually poison you too. And their lives lie in wait. In the previous verses, they were lying in wait for others, waiting in ambush to attack the innocent. But here's the reversal. Their own lives are being stalked. They have become both hunter and hunted. The word "lying in wait" here implies lying in wait, waiting for the right moment to strike. Their lives have become a trap, waiting to close in on them. Every step they take brings them closer to the moment when their own actions will destroy them. This verse reveals a profound psychological truth. By living in violence and deceit, you are constantly creating enemies, generating revenge, and accumulating consequences. Even if you escape a situation, there's always the next threat, the next revenge, the next danger. You live stalking your own destruction. There's also a dimension of poetic justice here. The measure you use for others will be used for you. The traps you set will eventually catch you. The deception you practice will eventually deceive you. It's a moral law as real as the law of gravity. In our modern context, we see this principle constantly manifesting itself. Corrupt politicians who destroy institutions end up destroyed by those same weakened institutions. Dishonest business people who deceive clients end up losing everything when the truth emerges. Violent people end up victims of the culture of violence they created. This verse also teaches us about the futility of evil. The wicked try so hard, plan meticulously, take enormous risks, and for what? To destroy themselves. All that energy, all that intelligence, all that effort wasted on a project that only results in self-destruction. There is also an implicit warning here. If you are on the path of evil, even if it seems to be working at the moment, even if you haven't yet been captured, the end is certain. You are setting snares for yourself. Every unjust act is another thread in the web that will eventually ensnare you. For the righteous, this verse is a comfort. When we see the wicked prospering, when it seems that injustice is winning, we can rest in this truth. They are preparing their own destruction. We don't need to seek revenge. They are avenging themselves. This verse is also an urgent call to repentance. If you recognize that you are on this path, stop now. Every additional step is another snare against your own life. The door to wisdom is still open, but the further you advance in evil, the more traps you set for yourself. Finally, this verse reminds us of God's mercy in warning us. He doesn't need to actively destroy the wicked. They are destroying themselves. But He, in His grace, warns us through Proverbs, do not be like them. Choose a different path before it's too late. Verse 19, such are the ways of everyone who seeks dishonest gain, who takes the lives of those who possess it. This verse concludes the warning section with a universal and definitive statement. Solomon isn't just speaking of the violent criminals he used as an example. He's stating a principle that applies to all forms of unjust gain. Such are the paths. Such connects this verse with everything that has come before. This is the pattern. This is the trajectory. This is the inevitable end. Paths indicates paths, life trajectories, chosen directions. The word are is present tense, not will be or maybe, but are. This is the current reality, not a future possibility. Destiny is built into the path from the beginning. Of everyone who seeks dishonest gain, here's the universalization. Not just murderers and violent thieves, but everyone, any person, in any time, in any culture, who seeks gain through unjust means. Seek indicates intention, active desire, deliberate pursuit. It's not those who occasionally stumble or are tempted, but those who make dishonest gain their goal, their life strategy, their method of operation. Dishonest gain, in Hebrew, this expression literally means greed or unjust gain. It's wealth obtained through means that violate justice, integrity, and the good of others. It's not honest profit from labor, it's exploitation, deception, theft, corruption. This phrase captures a whole spectrum of behaviors, from petty theft to grand corruption, from sophisticated fraud to direct violence, from subtle exploitation to overt oppression. Any form of enrichment that unjustly harms others is included here. Who takes away the lives of those who own them? Here is the final verdict, the inevitable sentence. The word takes away has the force of tears off, steals, violently removes. Life is not just biological existence, but vitality, purpose, meaning, everything that makes life worth living. Of those who possess it, this pronoun can refer to both profit and the greedy themselves. It is probably intentionally ambiguous, including both meanings. Dishonest gain takes the life of those who possess it. Greed destroys the greedy. This verse teaches us a fundamental truth. You cannot truly gain through unfair means. Even if you accumulate material wealth, you are losing your life, your soul, your character, your peace, your eternal future. Jesus would echo this principle centuries later. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Proverbs was already teaching this truth. Dishonest gain is no profit at all. It is loss disguised as gain. There is also a description here of the addictive nature of greed. Dishonest gain takes the life of those who possess it, just as a drug destroys the addict. You think you possess wealth, but in fact it possesses you, consumes you, destroys you. For our modern world, this verse speaks directly to a culture obsessed with getting rich without much regard for the means. Get-rich-quick schemes, quick deals, systemic corruption, economic exploitation all fall under the category of dishonest profit. And this verse also questions our definitions of success. Our culture measures success by the accumulation of wealth, regardless of how it was obtained. But Proverbs says, if you obtained it through injustice, it is not success. It is slow suicide. You are taking your own life. For Christian professionals, this verse sets a clear standard. It is never worth compromising integrity for financial gain. That promotion obtained through deception, that contract won through bribery, that profit obtained through exploitation, it is literally costing your life. This verse is also a warning to society as a whole. When we tolerate or even celebrate enrichment through dubious means, when our heroes are people who succeeded regardless of ethics, we are promoting a pattern that destroys lives. For parents, this verse is crucial to teach your children. In a world that constantly whispers, do whatever it takes to succeed, we need to teach the opposite principle. Integrity is worth more than wealth. Character is more valuable than comfort. A life well lived is better than a fat bank account. Finally, this verse offers hope through its implicit contrast. If dishonest gain takes life, then honest gain, righteous work, and just prosperity. These not only preserve life, but truly enrich it. Verse 20, wisdom cries out in the street, she raises her voice in the streets. With this verse, a new section of Proverbs chapter 1 begins. After showing the way of the wicked and its dire consequences, Solomon now personifies wisdom as a woman who goes out into the streets crying out. This is one of the most powerful and dramatic images in all of Scripture. Wisdom cries out. The Hebrew word for wisdom here is in the feminine plural, chokmot, which some scholars understand as a plural of majesty or intensification. Wisdom is not presented as an abstract concept, but as a living, active, passionate person. Crying out is not speaking quietly or whispering politely. It is shouting, proclaiming loudly, demanding attention. There is urgency here. There is passion. There is almost desperation. Wisdom is not timidly suggesting, it is desperately appealing. Why does wisdom need to cry out? Because no one is listening. Because people are rushing toward evil. Because time is running out. Because lives are in danger. The cry of wisdom is the cry of a lover watching their beloved run toward a cliff. Out there, wisdom is not hidden in dusty libraries or distant temples. It is out there, accessible, public, available. No one can say, I didn't know, or I didn't have access. Wisdom is where the people are. In the streets, raise your voice. The streets were the center of public life in the ancient world. They were where business was done, where people met, where news was shared. They were the equivalent of the public square, the marketplace, the spaces where life happened. Raise your voice reinforces the idea of volume, of intensity, of refusal to be ignored. Wisdom is not murmuring in the background. It is rising up, raising its voice above the din of everyday life. This verse teaches us something fundamental about the nature of divine wisdom. It is active, not passive. It seeks us, not just waits for us to seek it. Like the shepherd who goes after the lost sheep, wisdom comes to us where we are and cries out to us. Here, too, is a refutation of any idea that God is distant or indifferent. If wisdom cries out in the streets, then God is actively trying to reach people. He is not a hidden God who needs to be discovered through secret rituals. He is in the streets of life, crying out for him to be heard. This verse also establishes that ignorance is no excuse. Wisdom is not whispering in some secret place. It is crying out publicly. It cannot be claimed that we didn't know, didn't hear, or didn't have the opportunity. The invitation is public, loud, and clear. In our modern context, this verse makes us ask, where is wisdom crying out today? Perhaps in the conscience that bothers us when we are about to do something wrong. Perhaps in the advice of a wise friend who warns us. Perhaps in the word of God that we read or hear preached. Perhaps in the consequences we see in the lives of others. Wisdom is crying out in the modern streets, in schools, in workplaces, in families, in churches, even on social media when wise voices speak truth. The question is not whether it is crying out, but whether we are listening. This verse also challenges us to be voices of wisdom. If wisdom cries out in the streets, then those who have wisdom should not be silent. We should raise our voice where life happens, not just comfort ourselves in our religious bubbles. For leaders and influencers, this verse is a call. Use your platform, use your voice, use your position, not to promote yourself, but to cry out wisdom. Go where the people are and speak truth with love and urgency. There is also a contrast here with the sinners at the beginning of the chapter. They said, "Come with us." V11, a private, secret, seductive invitation. Wisdom says, listen to me publicly in the streets, in the light of day. Evil works in the shadows. Wisdom works in the light. Finally, this verse paves the way for what comes next. The speech of wisdom personified. And its message will be urgent, passionate, even stern. Because when someone you love is in mortal danger, you don't speak quietly, you cry out. And so we conclude 10 more verses from Proverbs chapter 1. We have seen the complete seduction of the wicked, their tactics, their promises, their deceptive invitations. We have seen Solomon's response, do not consent, turn away, keep your distance. And we have seen the devastating truth, evil is self-destructive, dishonest gain takes the life of its possessor. But we end with hope. Wisdom is not hidden. She cries out in the streets. She is accessible. She is seeking you. She is raising her voice so that you can hear and live. In the next video, we will continue listening to wisdom's cry, her questions, her warnings, her promises, and we will discover what happens to those who reject her call, and what happens to those who respond. The question remains, are you hearing wisdom's cry in your life? Where is she raising her voice to you today? Until next time, may your ears be attentive to the voice of wisdom.